So in the last video we completed the core of our hexapod. What we're going to do now across these next three videos is create a sub-assembly for the leg that we're going to bring into that core assembly to complete the design of our hexapod. And this is what it's going to look like, and what you'll learn over the next three videos are some more modelling techniques, but also how to apply joints to an assembly so that it actually moves in the way it would do in real life. So that's what we're going to do. In the remainder of this video we're going to concentrate on modelling these links and starting the core of our leg design. So straight away what I'm going to do is create a new design and immediately save that and call it Leg Sub Assembly, so that I can then bring that in from the project area, which is the hexapod project area we created earlier. So I've created that leg sub assembly now, and I'm going to go straight into the sketch menu and start sketching. And what I'm going to do to create those linkages is use the slot tool. So the center to center slot tool is really useful and really quick to be able to design those linkages. And what this does is it actually creates what you'll see on the screen in a second. I'm first of all going to specify 70mm as the distance between the centers of that slot, and then drag out, and I'm going to make that 15mm wide, and that creates that outline of the linkage. And the useful thing it's done here is actually created these center points, which is what I'm going to use to actually put two 5mm diameter circles that are actually centered on those center points. And that's my first linkage done, so that was really quick. And I'm just going to go back now and do that again, but this time I'm going to create a 50mm center to center distance, but again 15mm wide, and again 5mm diameter circles centered on the center points of that slot. So that's very quickly created two sketches that I'm going to use to create my component linkages. So I'm going to stop sketch at that stage, and now what I'm going to do is go create, extrude, and if I pick on this first profile and drag it out and make it 6mm, what I want to do at this stage though is not make this a new body. I want to make this a new component. So this is a way of actually producing components as you go along. So this is an alternative method to going to the create menu, create new component, and then starting your sketches. And I'll show you the difference between the two approaches in a second when we've created both of these linkages. So I'm going to make this a new component, so I'm going to create it as a new component, click OK, and you'll see now we've got component 1 in the browser, and at this stage now I'm going to rename that and call that linkage 1. You'll notice that the sketch has disappeared, but I can go back to the sketches menu, turn the light bulb on and have that reappear. And I'm going to extrude that by the same amount. I'm going to extrude that by 6mm as I did with the first linkage, so they're both the same width. And again I'm going to make that a new component, so click OK. Now I've got component 2, which I'm going to rename as linkage 2. Now the difference between the approaches that we've taken earlier is the sketch that we created first off to create these linkages actually belongs to the top level assembly, whereas the approach we took before, that sketch would actually be part of this linkage. So that sketch would move around with this linkage, and this sketch at the moment is actually static and it's held as part of the sub-assembly. So that's a slight difference in this approach that we've taken this time. So we've got our two linkages, and what I want to do now is create the starting block for our leg. So I'm going to go back and do this the way that we did before. I'm going to create a new component and I'm going to call this the leg, and that makes that the active component. I'm now going to create a sketch on the plane that's facing me, and the way I'm going to create this leg is I'm going to the rectangle tool, I'm going to choose the 2-point rectangle tool, and I'm going to drag out and make that 60mm deep. And if you press the tab button, then that moves to the other dimension, and I'm going to make that 50mm. So that's created my rectangle. I'm now going to the sketch menu, and I'm going to create a couple of construction points. So you can actually drop a point in on a sketch. So I'm going to drop one point in on that line there and another one there, and I want to position those accurately. So I'm now going to go back to the sketch menu, pick the sketch dimension tool, click on that point and that point there, and then drag out and make that 15 millimeters. So that construction point is now 15 millimeters down from that corner. And I'm going to do the same with that one and make that one 15 millimeters also. Now the reason for doing this is I'm now going to move to the arc tool, pick the 3-point arc, and then use these 2 points as the anchor points for my arc, and then I'm going to drag that arc out. And you can see there's a dotted blue line which is showing me that it's actually there connected to the midpoint of that line. So I'm going to click on that. I'm just going to escape from that tool now and then go back and pick the dimension tool, because what I want to do is make that particular arc 18 millimeters in diameter. So that's now 18 millimeters. In terms of radius, not diameter. That's now a radius of 18 millimeters. What I want to do now is use the line tool and find the center point of that line, which you've seen before. If you hover over it and the triangle comes up, you know you're at the midpoint of that line. And I'm going to drag that down to the corresponding point on the other side. I'm going to escape out of the line tool, and what I want to do is pick on that line and make that a construction line. I don't want that to be an active part of the sketch, and the reason for doing that is I'm going to go to the sketch tool and use this command called mirror, which allows me to pick on this particular arc here and then select the mirror line as that line there, and what you'll see now is it's put that mirror image of that arc that we've just drawn across onto the other side of the sketch. And when I click OK, you'll suddenly see an awful lot of constraints appear, and they're all mirror constraints. So this sketch knows that these two entities in the sketch are actually mirrored from one another. So I'm now going to stop the sketch, and to finish off this video I'm just going to go create, extrude, and extrude this particular sketch by 20 millimeters. And then if I reselect the top level assembly, you can now see I've got my 3 components. These are my starting components. I've got 2 linkages and I've got the start of the center block from my leg. So what we're going to do in the next video is move on and just finish off part of this, and then we'll start looking at creating joints between these components.